Perfect. So thank you, Ryan. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the NAWI Next Generation webinar. So today the topic will be career opportunities and research at the National Laboratories, bridging innovation, operation, and priorities. So my name is Subrata Mukherjee, and I am a member of the NAWI Next Generation Leadership Council and today's moderator. The goal of the today's webinar is to provide students, postdoctoral researchers, as well as early career professionals with insights into research careers at the National Laboratories. We'll discuss the day-to-day work of the researchers, emerging research directions, internships, and other opportunities, and advice for those interested in pursuing careers in these National Laboratory setups. So today we are fortunate to have our four distinguished panelists representing different national labs across the United States. So I'll give a brief introductions of them. So first of all is Dr. Scott Struck from the National Lab of Rockies, Dr. Shrikant Allu from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, Dr. Christopher Blaze also from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory, and Dr. Eleanor Spillmanson from the SLAC National Laboratory. So if you can just tell a brief about yourself to the audience, that will be great. Thank you.
I'll start off, Subrata, since you started me as the first introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Scott Struck. I am, as Subrata said, a researcher at National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Former name, I guess it's National Laboratory of the Rockies as our new name. And so I am actually fairly recent to the laboratory in that I started in 2022. So I don't have a long career, but I also came at with the National Lab, but I came at it at a little bit different direction, having worked in industry for about 16, 17 years before coming to the laboratory. So having an experience more on the consulting and industrial side, and so that brings a little bit different perspective to the laboratory.
Thank you so much.
I'll go next, Subrata. Hello, everyone. My name is Shrikant Allu. I'm a research staff member at Oak Ridge National Lab. I've been at the lab for last 16, 17 years. My background is on computational mechanics. And I've been involved in developing computational frameworks for various application areas like electrochemical storage or water desalination systems. And I think it's been a wonderful experience so far working at a national lab, and I'm happy to share some of my experience here.
Thank you. Anyone can go next, either Eliana or Chris.
Sure. My name is Eleanor. So I am a scientist at SLAC National Laboratory. Specifically, I am a beamline scientist at SSRL. So that's the Stanford Synchrotron Radiation Light Source. So I provide user beamline support for users using X-ray absorption spectroscopy imaging beamlines, so mostly X-ray fluorescence mapping. And I've been in the National Lab System once I finished my PhD, or rather during my PhD, I used the synchrotron facilities. I did my postdoc at SSRL, then RA, and now I'm a permanent staff member here.
Thank you. Chris, you can go next.
Yeah, so I'm probably the newest to both the water space and national labs. I'm Chris, I'm a postdoc also at Oak Ridge National Lab. I had sort of a also different career path. I was a control system integrator for about 5 years before I went back to school up in Northeastern in Boston. So I did like PLC cabinet builds and IO checks and instrumentation for chemical plants. Then I studied simulation, and then I found a really cool kind of opportunity with Chris Velez's group at Oak Ridge that combined the things that I did, in the past in industry, and then the things that I did during my doctorate. So, not to plug Oak Ridge too much because we already have 2 people on the panel from there, but there's a lot of really cool kind of nexus opportunities like that there. So I'm excited to talk about my experience.
Yep. I think, yep. Thank you all for this nice introduction. So before we move on for the questions, right? I'd like to mention that we have reserved approximately 15 minutes at the end of the panel discussion for the audience Q&A, and we encourage you all to submit your questions throughout the webinar using the chat or the Q&A features, and we'll do our best to address as many of them as the time permits as we move on, right? Yeah. So with this, I think we can proceed with this moderate Q&A, this moderate panel discussion. So, so if you all agree, so I can just proceed with the questions then. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, as you already have made, give a brief introduction about yourselves. So maybe it will be more pertinent towards the type of research what you guys are doing in the national lab. So if you can briefly discuss about your current role and the type of research you are more involved in the national lab. That is the first question from our side, I think. So I think we can go in that order of the introduction. Scott, Srikant, Eleanor, and Chris. I think that order will be good, right? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Mm.
So I, again, as I had mentioned in the brief intro, I had come to the National Lab after being in consulting for a number of years, and what brought me here was that even though I was doing a lot of applied work with the consulting firm that I was working with, the opportunity to make a larger difference in the water treatment space, the desalination space was exciting to me. I thought that while doing a lot of implementation of projects, working on the research side offered a lot of opportunities and interest for me, and what really, I guess, provided me the motivation to come to work every day was doing more of those types of research projects. And so I wanted to bring a lot of those notions of practicality and applied science into the research space. And so that's where, similar to the way Chris was describing that melding of what he was doing before with what he could do on the research side, is what attracted me also to this space and working for NLR. So I was able to apply a lot, and I would do a lot of work with, again, on the treatment side, I work with NAWI. I oversee a lot of the pilot systems because I had done a lot of pilot development prior to joining the National Lab. And so I've been able to leverage that with my role at both NLR and with NAWI in terms of overseeing a lot of the pilot projects that are ongoing within NAWI. And so I, again, work in that space primarily on the water treatment and water technology side, how to build those systems, how to build them in a modular fashion, and then how to deploy them. And so that has been a fantastic experience for me. And I hope I've been able to help a lot of the pilot projects think about how they're fashioning their systems and even their experimentation in a way that can be more useful and more commercialized once those pilots have been fully developed and deployed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Can I go next?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, so primarily, at least where I'm positioned within the lab, right? I'm on the computing side of the lab. We host one of the top supercomputers within the country and across the world. My primary attraction of why I came to Oak Ridge was to ability to harness some of those computing resources, and do something really bigger, right? So what we typically do is develop scientific libraries that will be able to port and scale on the supercomputer and solve bigger challenges, right? So so that's what has attracted me to come to Oak Ridge. Now, I've been involved in NAWI for almost 7 years now, 6, 7 years. And what I've been developing is a framework that allows you to study these process scale systems of these desalination plants, right? And we are developing the models, the unit processes, and we are, putting them within a framework that allows you to do these various simulations, and at a much larger scale. And for the last year or two, we've been also developing a framework that allows us to build a digital twin, right? So we're developing the architecture and understand what goes into this digital twin, and what are the communication protocols, how do you ingest the data, and how do you do your analytics on top of this data that is coming in, and then do optimization and do control set point actions back to the plant. So we are trying to build this architecture, digital twin architecture, that represents any physical piloting system that are being funded under NAWI. So that's what motivates us, right? Trying to do things at a much bigger scale, and also have these facilities within Oak Ridge that allows you to support some of the research within the NAWI project.
Thank you, Srikanth. Elena, you can go next.
Sure. So I think a little different from other people in that NAWI is not my primary focus of my job. I primarily do user support for the beamlines. So it's a user facility, so people from across the country, across the world apply to use our beamlines, and so I support a variety of different projects. So my original background is in biogeochemistry, but I support projects ranging across from environmental to geoscience to batteries and materials to water treatment related stuff. My involvement in NAWI has been because my background is in environmental engineering, and so I am interested in water treatment. And so I have started becoming a little bit more involved in some other projects such as NAWI, or I started to reach out to other collaborators who I think might be interested in using our beamlines. Yeah, but so mostly my main research, so to speak, is just using the instrumentation of X-ray fluorescence microscopy. But I am interested in how you can use that to look at particularly like membrane fouling processes that are occurring and other sorts of secondary mineral precipitation.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, so I think what originally attracted me to working in a national lab was kind of seems like a good compromise between academia and industry, where industrial jobs, a lot of the times, there's more of a like results focus, which is still present at the national lab, as far as I've been able to see, but there's, at least as much of a focus on the why for certain things. So I think Oak Ridge in particular, there's a lot of I can't speak to other national labs because I don't have experience there, but Oak Ridge does a lot of industry partnerships. There's a manufacturing demonstration facility where they have these gigantic 3D printers. I think that was when I was doing my interviews, that was like where they took me right near the end. So that kind of stuff attracted me. You see a 3D printed house and you can't help but think that that's pretty cool. So what I'm currently working on, there's an advanced manufacturing project for like fiber manufacturing, that we're using some machine learning type tools to optimize process that we have on a pilot and then scale it up to a much larger system. But then kind of water related, I'm working on actually with Subrata, we're doing a sensor network project where we're trying to optimize where you're placing certain types of sensors like mass flow rate, pressure, connectivity, etc., within a given plant PNID. And that's again, that's a lot of stuff that I had in my background. I found really kind of tied into that. So I think that
Yes.
the focus on efficiency and stuff like that, and kind of trying to like optimize and use stuff that's already existing. I kind of feel satisfied by, doing that for work. So
I think we can come into the details of on the
sure,
research
yeah.
for the next follow-up questions. So the next follow-up question is that what drew your attention, right? So that's the fine, right? But what keeps you guys going, right? What has motivated you to continue wake up on a daily basis and do research, right? To continue working this sort of research environment. What keeps you going? So that will be my second question, right? Yeah. So yep. Again, in the same order, Scott, if you
Sure.
want.
Sure. Yeah. So I think for me, motivation and by the way, so I do, about maybe 50% NAWI type of work, but I do a lot of other work outside of NAWI, including pump storage, hydropower, and some other hydropower work, as well as the water treatment side of things. So, that's part of what I enjoy, is that there's a broad range of things I get to work on and problems that need solving out there. And so I enjoy working with the brilliant staff at the National Lab that are continually bringing up new problems and new ideas for those problems, as well as trying to really engage in a lot of those industrial types of problems and solutions. And so to me, I think that ultimately, as I'm a civil engineer by background, and that's bringing in a lot of those solution-oriented type of projects that are trying to provide some solution in that way, some applied solution. It's what helps me be motivated day in and day out. And I see oftentimes maybe it's a longer term result, but that we are changing the science and the approaches to doing a lot of the work that we do. And so I find that exciting. I find it also exciting being challenged with new problems each and every day, either from colleagues or from industry. And so I think that kind of variety and solution-oriented type of work is what really motivates me.
Thank you. Shrikant, you can go next. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, so I work on multiple projects and application spaces as well. Water treatment desalination is one project that's like 25% of my time, but and then we have other big initiatives going on where we are doing some of the electrochemical energy storage, batteries kind of work. Now, what motivates us to work on this every day is the ability to be at the forefront and coming up with solutions of these various challenges within the application spaces, right? And you get an opportunity to collaborate with a wide multidisciplinary staff, right? Either it's materials or whether on the physical sciences side, or you're trying to work with staff who look at a much bigger scale at a systems level. So everyone comes up with their own set of challenges, and you get to work with this wide variety of disciplinary teams and come up with solutions to some of those projects within those projects. So think that being at the forefront and collaborating with the multidisciplinary team is what motivates me.
Thank you. Elena, you can go next.
What motivates me? I really like working at the beamlines. I enjoy the fact that there's a lot of interdisciplinary aspects to science now. Like, you're not just working on one individual little thing. I like bouncing around in different projects. I like talking with different people about their different things. I get to provide my little perspective, but most of it is like the collaborative nature I find at a lot of the national labs. I think very rarely are you just sort of in your little bubble, as sometimes in grad school you can be. You get to really reach out and talk to a lot of different people.
Yeah, Blaze next.
Yeah, I guess just kind of echoing what other people have said. You know, the problems and kind of being able to work with teams of people to solve these problems is really cool. Um, there's a poster at ORNL. I think it says something like good people from different fields working together can make major scientific discoveries that geniuses by themselves could not. And I think that's kind of you know, a tagline for any national lab, being able to work with all these people. There's some really cool stuff that you can do. So that's kind of why I keep getting up every day.
Yeah, well, I've received a very nice question, and I think it's very much appropriate for the cause right now. Thank you, Mohammed, for sharing this question. Right. So, in context to that, my next follow-up question is that what do you guys think? What does a collaboration look like at a national lab? Not only across the multidisciplinary teams or across divisions, but also if the startups, right, or across the industries, how to collaborate, how to write proposals. I know I'm aware of something called CREDA, something in context to that. Mohammed, I think so we can hear those sort of things from our speakers. I think there are a lot of opportunities, right? Scott, yeah, go first.
Sure, and I was putting together a little bit of a response to Mohammed's question in the chat, but I can verbalize it instead probably just as fast. And that's I think that some of what the national labs offer is connections both to industry and to academia and research that can help find, for instance, flaws or even challenges that might be upcoming in the commercialization process. I think the other side of it is that the national labs often are great partners in a lot of this third-party verification and validation that is often necessary or helpful in, for instance, getting investors to put money behind a lot of the technologies that might be coming out. So that's what I see a lot of the kind of piloting that I work on is that there's opportunities once a technology has gotten to a certain stage and has been validated by, for instance, a third-party lab or a national lab, that then they provide a lot more credence and scientific rigor to those types of projects that is often appreciated, especially by that investment community. But also, I think that it helps to identify what might be the next steps and where the technology might go, as well as again the major hurdles that might still be out there that need to be overcome before a technology might be truly able to be commercialized.
Thank you.
Can I add on to that, Subrata?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So, Mohammed, to your question, there are two parts to your question, right? So there is the facility access, and then how do you work together, right? So the facility access, whether it's spallation neutron source here at Oak Ridge or APS at Argonne or even light source at SLAC. So that's something, you don't need us for you to access those facilities. So there is a peer review process that goes on where you submit proposals for beam time at these user facilities or even supercomputers, right? If you want to have some node hours on these big supercomputers for some of your computing requirements, there are insight calls where you can put together a proposal, and these calls come out every year or so, and based on the review and the opportunity, they make allocations to the beam time or the supercomputers. Now, if you want to actually work with us, right, for some of the technology development, again, there are multiple pathways, right? Typically, Department of Energy issues the FOAS or NOFOS these are funding opportunities, and based on the the gap analysis and where you think you need expertise, you should be able to find a relevant staff member within the lab, and and there are people who can help you with that. Doing a mapping and integration, and uh, work together on developing this concepts and put together proposals for the Department of Energy. Yeah, but yeah, I'll be able to help any specific questions that you have along those lines.
Thank you. Elena, do you have anything
Yeah,
to
I
add?
can just add a little bit more to like the user facility access. Unfortunately, I don't have a general answer. I have a specific answer. So one of the things I am involved with in NAWI is we're trying to work on enabling better industry access to some of the user facilities. So I think there's like a lot of parallels in certain industries, such as like biotech, where you do crystallography, where it's a very well-established, streamlined process of you submit samples and they're run at these facilities. And it's a little bit more murky in water treatment because of how broad of a field it is. So the short answer is if you are interested in specifically user facility access, learning a little bit more about what some of our capabilities are or interested in using them, I really encourage you to reach out to me. I'm also really happy to help you put you in contact with the appropriate person, particularly as a fellow Bay Area. Yeah.
Chris?
I don't think I have much to add for this specifically, but definitely pursue it because it's worth it.
Yes. To add to this, I think the general answer is to reach out to us. I think there are a lot of involvements like Grid and others that are going on. So I think the best will be to reach out to these guys, and I think we are good to go from there. Thank you. So the next question is that what emerging research directions do you think will become increasingly important at the National Lab over the next immediate 5 years, particularly pertinent to water energy nexus or sustainability related areas? What do you think?
Sorry, Subrata, can you repeat the question?
Oh, so what do you think what are the emerging research directions do you guys think will become increasingly important in the national labs over the next 5 to 10 years in the areas of pertinent to water energy nexus or sustainability related areas, right? Related to the projects that are coming for successful projects or proposals.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the challenges I think at a national lab is that you're often responding to administration priorities. And that's not always directing all of our research, but oftentimes because that's where funding is coming from, that we have to be able to pivot to some of those priorities. And so I think that one of the aspects, either good or bad, is that right now, especially Srikanth and the both the genesis on performance computing and other aspects of water treatment technologies, I think is really an area that's going to be that's going to grow very quickly. Also, a lot of what Chris is talking about with incorporating real-time controls and models and so forth that are being supplemented by AI and new technologies to be able to do operations. I think that's an area where there's going to be continued growth and it'll be very quick in those realms. But I still think that there's a need oftentimes for human in the loop to be able to do some validations, some controls, and some verifications of those types of technologies. And so I think that's one of the growth areas. And I think all the labs are coordinating and cooperating in a lot of these Genesis type of projects where there's going to be very quick growth in those areas. And so I think that's exciting, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we are moderating or at least thinking about how all of these tools can be used in the most efficient way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Scott. Shrikant.
Yeah. So if you're looking for 10 years out is too far away. Like Scott said, we typically respond to the administration calls. But for the next 5 years, or what at least I would suggest is it's fundamentally changing on how we are doing research or science, right? Practically everyone uses LLMs and AIs at this point, in every aspects of their research. My only suggestion is, you still need to have that subject matter expertise, right? Because you really can't blindly trust AI, or even for that matter, any modeling and simulation, right? You don't really blindly trust it. You validate the results. You understand what processes or what phenomena are you trying to capture, whether we are actually capturing what are the biases in those predictions. Similarly with AI, you need to have that subject matter expertise. But at the same time, you have to utilize some of these data tools or machine learning models to see how you can, introduce that within your research and see if there is a way for you to accelerate or be more productive in your in your activities. Yeah.
Yeah, Elena, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, we're not immune to the same sort of things that every other industry. There's always some buzzword that's coming around. Like, I don't think we're that immune to it. I think people have talked about AI. I don't know if people talked about rare earth metals. That's the other kind of key buzzword right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any particular insight beyond what has already been said.
Mhm. Yeah. Chris?
Like maybe just to kind of illustrate what people are talking about with a anecdote. We recently had like a demo of I think it was a RO skid, but they had been able to like scan the, SolidWorks drawing and all the instrumentation and stuff using an AI, and they had, you know, everything set up so that you could pull reports and stuff like that, and kind of to cap it all off, a little LLM chatbot on the side. And I think that like one of the questions that my mentor, who's also named Chris, asked of that was like, or a comment he had rather, was that the tools are all there, they're great, and it's obviously like, super like instrumental to being able to do a lot more than we could before, but like you need to have somebody who's trained to ask the right questions, because if you have like a green operator going to use that, they're not, it's all that stuff isn't going to help. It's just going to be, more stuff for them to muddle through. So I think that's kind of a caveat to all this AI stuff, is we need to be mindfully approaching how we implement it, not just throwing it at the wall.
Mhm. Yes. So that's nice. Thank you. I have received very interesting questions. So I think that this one will be, I can combine those two questions. So one, thank you, Odisha, for this question, right? So can you all speak a little bit about the career ladder in the national labs? Because, and what are the pathways to make the transition between postdoc, staff scientist, and PI? Those sort of things. And also, my original intent was to ask that question, right, for the students, PhD students mostly, and the early career researchers, right? So what do you think, what are the professional or technical skills do you think will be the valuable and asset for building a successful career at the national lab in these sort of things? So you can just segregate these two questions, right? And for the early careers as well as the career ladder at Odisha has mentioned. So that will be great in the next question. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and so from my perspective, having been called out in Arissa's question, so I mean, I have not. I entered the National Lab as essentially a PI and as of an upper, I guess, a later career researcher. But what I've seen so far is that I think that those opportunities we can get internships either as postdocs or as when you're doing your work, your graduate work, or as a postdoc, is hugely advantageous. And then work and try to network with as many people as you can at the National Lab, because I think that that having that larger network and that exposure and experience to more projects, more people, is always going to be advantageous. And that's true not just in the national labs, but also in the consulting world. And so I think that if you're able to do more of that, Subrata and I, for instance, were just at a recent conference and had some interaction. We're able to spend some time with various researchers and talking about, certainly the technical side of things, but a lot of the conversations that I also have is similar to this question, where it's about a career development and what can be, what can I do? How can I position myself to be the one that can move forward if there's limited positions, et cetera. And so always my response to that is to be involved in as many projects as you can. Try to really think about your value and what you can add to each of those projects. I think that there's tremendous opportunities, even if it's just simply running the models, providing interpretation, or doing whatever function you might have, and doing it very well, especially on and trying to save time and effort for the PI. That is hugely valued by the PIs, and a lot of times they'll recognize that and try to include you, for instance, on new projects. And so while it maybe sounds a little bit cliche to put the most effort you can into those types of things, it really does, in my experience, pay off both from a professional standpoint and a personal standpoint, because you gain so much additional knowledge and experience when you're doing those kinds of things, and you become a pivotal part of a lot of those projects. And because of that, you're indispensable in many ways. And so that's what I found throughout my career, is that those younger staff members that are indispensable, I try to put them on every project I can after that. And so that's what my suggestion is try to become indispensable is what I would say, which means putting in a lot of effort in a lot of those projects. If it's asking more questions or trying to offer more contributions or insights that you find, I think that in my experience, most PIs are willing to hear you out and to listen to those things, especially if they're going to improve the project.
Can you go ahead?
Thank you. Yeah, Shrikant.
Yeah, so the career pathway is always difficult, because it's not like a defined set of steps, right? For you to land within a national lab as a staff. Every person that I talk to has something different, right? So the key, like what Scott was saying, is a differentiator. Like, how do you differentiate yourself within the pool? And what do you bring to the table is important, right? So at the end of the day, we are here to solve challenges, problems, the bigger challenges, right? Now, what are the skill sets or tools that you have developed that helps us to solve some of those challenges is what we will be looking for. Now, how do you make connections? Like I said, conferences, networking, even cold calling. Like, you never know. So never hesitate to reach out, send an email. And all the labs, I think, have some kind of an internship programs, right? So you should always look for that, apply for those positions, and follow it up, right? Do your background, understand who you're applying to, what they are doing, what are their challenges, and how the skill sets that you bring will help address some of those challenges and helps the PI. So if you position yourself along those lines, right? And people will respond, right? So yeah, keep again, don't hesitate to reach out and call and ask for time just to talk, right? So yeah, that's all I have.
Thank you. And Elena, you want to share?
My short answer is get a postdoc at the National Labs. Like that is if you're very early career, the most direct way to get into the National Labs is to get a postdoc at one of them. Yeah, that is the very short answer, rather than going on to the longer things that people want to.
Blaze, you want to share?
Yeah, I basically kind of parroting what Eleanor said. It's at least I think it's different because I went to a bunch of panels like this when I was in grad school, and we got to talk to a bunch of people from national labs, and it seems like, there's kind of different sort of retention rates and stuff, but I think in general, like there's pretty good I've had a great you know, experience here. I think Subrata, got hired last year as a staff from a postdoc position. It seems like they have a pretty good rate of, bumping people up to staff. So kind of talk to people in the department and see what it's like, I guess.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. So I know for people in the universities doing PhDs or masters, right? So we do have some sort of internship programs like ORI, SUNY, SURF, right? Those sort of programs are very much favorable, and people come to do the summer internship. So if you can highlight a bit of that, and also there's an interesting question in the chat, right? What is the metric? An important factor in getting an offer from national labs, relevant experience, publications, networking and connections, or something else. So I think if you can just share a bit of your experience, nothing you have to explain or elucidate in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess in my experience, I mean, it's all of the above.
Yeah.
In terms of, publications are part of it. Certainly, I think experience, especially in a relevant area that's in an area that's needed, either for projects or in the we see as a tangential need in the future. That's important. Networking and connections is always important, because if you're not known through the community, either as a PhD student or a postdoc, then especially if you're coming from an adjacent field or something like that, it's always better to do, as Eleanor and Chris said, have a postdoc so you are known within the laboratory. But if you're not able to do that, presenting, being involved in the conferences that you'll be seen, and connecting with them. Like Subrata came up and talked with me at our recent conference. I didn't know he was there. He came up and said, "Hey, I'm here. Come see my poster. Let's talk a little bit." And so that's a great example of saying, going out of the way to make yourself known and to continue that networking process. And so I think that's the kind of things, the activities that need to be done so that you are known, so that people do learn who you are and can see your research. It doesn't always require necessarily publications, but getting out there and sharing the information you have, and that can include social media as one way of doing it, but also being involved in professional organizations like NAWI and other similar types of efforts. If you're specific to NAWI, on the reuse side of things, going to the water reuse conferences, things like that, I think are the way that people can take notice easier. And then when you're at those kinds of activities or these kinds of events, make sure you're trying to connect with researchers and PIs.
Thank you. Shrikant, you want to?
No, I don't have much to add to that. But like I said, network, email, and just reach out. I mean, never hurts.
Thank you. Elena and Chris.
First, I guess some of our panel members have to jump off. Maybe we'll let them in.
Yes. Thank you, Scott. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
for your time.
Apologize. And I
please
have to
reach out
drop,
to
but
Scott, right? If you guys have any sort of questions, right? Please feel free to reach out to Scott, as he has mentioned. Thank you, Scott.
thank you.
I'll
I
be
think, yeah, I think Shrikant will also, right? He will also leave in some minutes. So maybe I'll ask the final question because maybe it will be more pertinent for Shrikant, right? So let me just jump off to that question, right? So I think a lot of thing is going on with the LLM and AI-enabled tools, right? So are you noticing any changes in the way research is conducted at the national labs? How do you think these tools may influence the day-to-day work that you all are doing and also in the immediate future?
Yeah, I mean, actually, as Scott mentioned, there is a lot of activity going on at the labs on this Genesis mission.
Mhm.
Right. So it's not just using the LLM tools out of the box. They're actually putting together foundational frontier models from all the scientific data being generated within this lab complex. So that's a big thing, right? Because the uh, the Claude or OpenAI or all the other famed LLM tools that are out there, yeah, they definitely help with on your day-to-day activities, but not necessarily as much on the scientific side, right? Because of the lack of scientific data, right? So, and I think as part of the Genesis mission, there are various initiatives within the lab complex where they're trying to harness some of this data uh, and put together some frontier models on various application spaces. So definitely things are changing. Like it's not like how we used to do like even 2 years ago or 3 years ago, right? And people are using multimodal RAGs, LLMs, and to use it as part of their you know it's like a what I call as an advanced postdoc. So it's like we're using all these tools as an advanced postdoc, like things that postdocs were doing as part of their appointment. Most of those tasks are being taken out by these LLMs. So we definitely are seeing a change. And if a postdoc comes with a priori knowledge on how do you build this and how do you use this for some of their tasks, I think that will be a very plus up on their CV. So if anyone who is still grad school, this is the best time for you to invest and add it on as part of your CVs to see, that will be a key differentiator that people will be looking out for if they're trying to hire in years out.
Thank you, Srikant. Yeah, Eliana and Chris, do you have anything to add? Yeah, good. Yeah, Chris, do you have anything?
Maybe just real quick. I think that, I can't predict the future, but it seems like currently a lot of these things, because of all these initiatives, are cheap or in some cases free. I know that I have like an API connection that I can use at ORNL with some, a bunch of LLM models that doesn't need a charge code, which means that I can just kind of use it. I imagine that, there's going to be a point where things become more expensive. So kind of take advantage of things that you have access to learn stuff and then, see what comes.
So I think thank you all for all those sort of questions. I think Eric, that is a great question. Please feel to reach out to Chris Blaze or Shrikant regarding these sort of questions. I think all of the panelists have shared their email ID. Chris, if you can also share your email ID over here, right in this platform, so that Eric and others can reach out to you. And don't feel shy, right, to reach out to everyone. I think, yeah, you are more than welcome. I think with that, yeah, Shrikant also has to leave. And with that, I think we are at the end of our discussion. And as in the course of time, we are also taking the Q&A session. So I think I have covered most of the questions. But if I miss any one of that, you can just ask that one. Or yeah, Eric, you can just ask your question, right? What you are, yeah.
Thank you very much, Subrata. I just a bit of background. I've done industry work since my PhD in water processing and mineral extraction, R&D and scale up. And I'm curious about how AI is already being incorporated into pilot projects. Are there existing examples of projects you guys have worked on that have AI in them, and what are the future possibilities? And that is a pretty broad question, including operations, troubleshooting, diagnostics, determining like DOE, determining what experiments to run, and the research direction itself.
Yeah, that's a very nice and detailed question, I think. So, Elena and Chris, do you want to start off with that, or what do you think? Chris?
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot, Subrata, but I know that you and I have worked with the University of California, Irvine, on a
Yes.
digital twin project. I think the digital twins are going to be really big. The kind of specific nature of the one that I was more ancillary to it, but they developed a model that was able to kind of optimize for cost using things like the electric tariffs and the cost of running a pump on certain times a day. And Subrata actually incorporated, they had I don't know if you know Sumo modeling software, but they had a Sumo model, which was like a physics-based model. And then there was also, it's not AI, it's a machine learning model, but kind of similar thing. Basically a black box model that would be able to work with your inputs, update your set points, and then kind of iteratively like repeat that every hour, I think.
Yes, some sort of autonomous control we have done by a machine learning empirical model, right? And it was working similar to that of the physics-based models. Though physics-based models needs a lot of data, and also to do the optimization others, it was very much time consuming. Those are bulky models, right? So the empirical models, and also some sort of further process optimizations, right? And for anomaly detections in the pilot, and for those sort of things, right? Or for the soft sensing also, in our different Navi projects, we are applying AI for that. So let me share my mail ID with you also, right? So that we can talk offline if you're interested. So yeah, there are a lot of options, and Navi is also supporting these sort of AI-based calls. And I think in the water tab models also, they are also more inclined towards this sort of AI-based setups, right? So I'm not much familiar with the agentic AIs now in the water pilots, but I know that Chris Ville and others are interested in this sort of operations, Eric. So yeah, we can talk offline more regarding that.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm familiar with the water tap models. I've just used that by myself a little bit after learning about that at NAWI. So I'm really interested into how that's, being incorporated, at a, I guess, a more technical, more detailed scale than I'm able to do. So I'll reach out. Thank you.
Definitely also reach out to Shrikant too, because his group is doing a lot of cool stuff with the short-term, long-term memory, bunch of stuff I don't understand. So
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so any more questions from the audience? If not, I think I'll pass it to Hannah. Hannah, if you want to, take the stage and conclude.
Yeah. I am Hannah. I am the current NextGen chair. Thank you everyone for your participation in this wonderful webinar. Thank you, Subrata, for moderating, and to our panelists. I really enjoyed this. I am one of the users that Eleanor was talking about supporting. I'm actually on the beam with her tomorrow. And so it was nice to hear all of the behind the scenes work at the National Labs going on. And so I just wanted to highlight a few of our other upcoming programs. And so the NextGen program has a mentorship program for any early career researchers. So that's anyone within the first 10 years of starting your career. That could be undergrads, grad students, postdocs, people who have just started a career and are looking for someone more experienced to chat with. We will have signups for mentors and mentees coming this August. So keep an eye out for that. If you're not following us on LinkedIn, that is typically how we post information. Maybe Ryan could drop a link to the LinkedIn page in the chat. And besides the mentorship program, we also have spotlights for early career researchers. So if you're interested in having an article written about you and your research that is promoted to the NAWI community, feel free to reach out to me or any of the other NextGen committee members. And then finally, if you're interested in joining the NextGen committee, me and Subrata, and we have 3 other people on the committee right now, we will have elections for that in November, and we're always looking for more people to participate. And so I'll drop my email as well. So if you have any questions about NextGen, please feel free to reach out. And with that, thank you, Ryan, for dropping the LinkedIn page. Yeah, any other comments, Subrata or Ryan?
I think I am good if the audience has any sort of questions. Otherwise, I think we are good. Thank you all for attending. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.